The crowd crush. Have you heard of this? It happened October 29th, 2022. Fair warning, this is a bad one. But if you're ready to dive into it, welcome. This is Screams for You, and I'm V. So turn down those lights and lock those doors. Here's a scream you can't ignore. So, Itaewon is a neighborhood in Seoul, South Korea. And this neighborhood is known for the bars and clubs, right? They're all along the strip. And goes to hang out and party. The thing that's wrong with this strip is it is small. And lots of people like to gather there. It's known that there's always crowds down at this place. And this Halloween night is no exception. But in fact, it is worse than it has ever been. There are so many people packed in this narrow street. The alleyways are narrow and there's very few of them. There is an iron temporary wall up, making it even more narrow, and the crowd is just piled in there, right? Everyone's partying, having a good time. Calls start coming in to the emergency services. The first one came in about 2 hours before the actual emergency call. And they're telling the police, you need to get down here. You need to do something. There is so much overcrowding. People are going to get trampled. People are going to get hurt. Please send somebody to do this. There were about 10 to 14 calls saying these exact same things. And no police showed up until the call stating that it had happened as predicted. There was a crush. So what does crush mean? Okay, I didn't really know at first when I was looking this up. I didn't understand. I thought it meant like crushed by buildings or something like that. Well, the thing about this street is that it's on an incline. It's so narrow and it's packed. 1, 2, 3, 4, they just start falling right on top of each other, crushing other people below them. And this is the crush. So that's exactly what happened. All these people just come tumbling down. So when this started happening, nearby businesses would not let people in out of the alleyway out of this alleyway because they were closing and they didn't want them in while they were closing, even though this is going on. Nobody really understood the magnitude right at that moment. A few people did. There were a few officers nearby that started taping it off. There were a couple of other people that escaped and were pulling people out. So while this is going on, there's people completely oblivious, even with it being taped off and everything, and they are dancing in the streets, from the bars. And there's even viral videos about it. Because people didn't understand what was going on, that helped impede the emergency services from reaching anybody. It's reported that they didn't finish getting everybody out of there until about 1 o'clock in the morning. So, another thing that impeded emergency services, well, there were so many calls from this accident that phone lines were going down. It was so narrow and there were so many people on top of each other, and with the incline made it really hard to get people out without falling in. They were going as fast as they could, and people were out in their costumes, just, people that were out having a good time too, giving CPR right along with the emergency services to people that needed it. And a lot of the deaths were caused by suffocation and brain swelling due to the trauma and hitting their heads and being crushed by other people. Not only is that sad within itself, but the numbers are astonishing. 159 people were killed during this incident, and 196 were very wounded. And it's not to say that this led to some controversies and some things going on behind the scenes that nobody seen coming. Now, they have been warned many times that this was very well a great possibility as to what would happen if it ever got overcrowded. Several times. Okay. Nobody responded to any of the calls made at first saying that this is going to happen at any minute. Those were all ignored. They started raiding the police offices for documents that pertain to misconduct. So there was a big investigation going on. And they were literally destroying the evidence stating that this could happen and that they've been warned. And evidence of receiving the phone calls and not responding like they should to try to shut it down or thin out the crowds, knowing that this is a possibility, and they did not have enough police force out and about while it was going on. And because of this investigations, 2 people took their own lives. One of them wasn't even being investigated, but he signed off on reports stating that everything was fine. So another one of those big cover-ups, police corruption. So 23 South Korean officers were charged with involuntary manslaughter and neglect. And it didn't say if any of them were prosecuted. The investigation revealed a lack of safety precautions and other police errors contributed to the high number of victims. Also, here's some numbers. So names and numbers are always important. Okay. So the government pledged to provide 15 million won in funeral expenses, which is about $11,488 US, and 20 million won in compensation, which is about $15,317. And that's what they were giving for this tragedy. And the hotels were also raided during all of this to see what their part was, because they were under suspicion of illegally extending the buildings, which led to the passageways and alleyways being even more narrow. Ooh, that hurt the ears. So, after all of this and the men that took their own lives, there was only actually 3 arrests. So with this, there's still no information on if the 3 men that were arrested have been or ever will be charged with neglect or manslaughter. And that is our tragic story. It seems like there should be a lot of responsibility, but it seems like there was a lot of cover-ups. So that concludes our coverage on the crush. What do you guys think? You think it's fair that nobody was held responsible? So, tons of cover-ups, tons of people doing the wrong thing. Just think about what a difference it would have made if someone would have just done the right thing in the first place. Then none of this would have been an issue and we wouldn't be talking about it right now. It doesn't take a lot to do the right thing. Even if you're wrong, you just say, I'm wrong, I want to try to do the right thing now. And that's all people really want from anybody, especially when it can prevent a devastating tragedy such as the crash. And there we go, spaghetti and eyeballs. I hope that you learned something, and I hope to see you next time. We got a few more days to go on our 31 days of Halloween. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and don't forget to have a creepy night.